I'd like to call the Grosseal Airport Commerce Park Commission meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Van Oz, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is the roll call. Mr. Moran is here. Mr. Rathel?
Here.
Mr. Van Oz? Here. Mr. Nardoni is excused. Mr. Mans? Here. And Mr. Stoll is excused. Item number 3 is additions or deletions to the agenda. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Support. Motion by Mr. Rathel, support by Mr. Mans. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries. I neglected after roll call to welcome back Mr. Van Oz to our commission. Ted was one of the founding members of the commission when we started back, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago. So, Ted, welcome back. Glad to have you.
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it.
And we'll be talking about losing a member later on in the agenda. But right now we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 19, 2012.
I move approval.
Got a motion by Mr. Rathel. Support. Support by Mr. Mans. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 5 is our financial report for November 2012. And our budgeted revenue for the year is $765,342. Year-to-date revenue is $607,707, which is 79% of our budget for the year. And our expenditures is the same, $765,342. Our year-to-date encumbrances and expenditures is $539,590, which is just over 70% of our budget for the year. Currently, we have capital reserves of $567,450. In our past due rent summary, we have 60 days, or more than 60 days past due of $18,288, and we are now 2/3 of the way through our budgeted year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike. You have any comments or anything you'd like to point out about the budget?
I just want to note the expenditures did catch up to the revenue a little bit this month. That's due to we paid off all of our insurance costs for the year during last month, and then we also purchased a load of fuel, so that's why the expenditure shot up quite a bit compared to the previous month. We are still trying to work down that past due summary there. You'll note, I guess I can do that now if you want, we made a deal, it was brought up, Cully was brought up last time with past due and the history there. A letter was sent. I tried to make several phone contacts and I have not heard back, so I have started the paperwork on that. They have a demand for rent possession out now, and they have 10 days to respond to that.
And that's a T-hanger that you'd indicated that if it's vacated, we could fill that relatively quickly.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mans.
Do you, Mike, do you know what the past due amount last month was, over 60 and over? I don't know if there is a column we can put to see what rolls from that 30 to 60.
I left that on my desk there.
That's all right. I just wonder how much is new.
So you'd like to see a column that said 30 and then a column for
Would that help
60
you
days?
guys? I mean, I know it's in the back. We can look them all up, but it'd kind of be, I don't think you want to go out 90, 120, 150, but
You like a 30 column added in there?
I think it'd probably be helpful.
It might be helpful.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Rathel.
Mike, could you just give us an overview of our 3 top offenders here? And, just update us again where we're at and what's happening.
The 3 top offenders there are, if you'll note, they're all tenants that either have left their properties or we evicted. Right now, I have the legal team working on trying to reach an agreement with Rush Fire Brick on whether we want to just reach a settlement. If he wants to pay a lump sum, it may not be the total amount, and we can settle it, something like that. But I do have the legal team working on that. Savvy Designs there is on the payment program, if you'll remember from last meeting, of $100 a month. And I have had some contact with Thomas James Photography, and he indicated he'd like to get on a payment program. If I don't hear back from him and try to reach an agreement soon, I will also start having the legal team poke it back at him, see if we can get something going in that court.
He's out as well, correct?
Yes.
I guess my question is, once we make an agreement, do we want to just, well, maybe this is something Ted can answer as well, do we just want to keep it on our accounts receivables over 60 days and just keep looking at this? $100 a month, it's going to be on there forever? Mm-hmm. Or do we move this stuff in another column once we have an agreement in place to collect the money? I really, my personal feeling is that when we look at $18,000, every month of 60-plus days,
I did have the same discussion with the accountant, and we were trying to figure out a way to do that, because then it would put it into the bad debt expense account. And, while they're paying it off, it won't necessarily be bad debt expense, so we're going to try to find a solution to that.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Mann?
I think, you could easily put another column, anything that goes legal, you could have a legal column.
Okay.
Not on the balance sheet, obviously, but just here, where you can see what has gone legal.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that would help us keep track, because sometimes if, after a couple months goes by, you forget what's going on with each of these tenants.
Unfortunately, I have a lot of experience looking at these.
Well, what happens too is you focus on those, and then there's others that can creep in that, that may only be, $300, $400 over 60 days that, you bypass because you're looking at the larger amounts due. So,
If any, since we are the township, if any of these tenants are township residences, and this question is for Mr. Van Oz, is there a way to tack this on to their taxes?
No. Unless a portion of that, I'm assuming that a portion of this Rush Fire Brick includes the real property tax that they're in arrears, or is this just the rent?
I believe we added the real property tax. I'll have to double check that for you.
And personal property tax.
Yes.
So, the problem is with both real personal property tax, as it relates to 189 structures here on the island, we can't turn over Lake County for payment, because I just can't come back because they have no means of recourse because we own the facility. And the only recourse Lake County has is to eventually foreclose on the structure and sell it. Well, they can't do that because of the stolen property. So consequently, we have no recourse, which makes it even more complicated to recoup our funds. I mean, we can get a legal judgment, and then we have to live with the judgment, and then it's up to us to, there's just really I think we need to change it just a little bit, because if there's personal property tax involved, the Treasury Department, if we know that this tenant is going to go away, we do have recourse. If he still has anything in that building, the Treasury Department, Treasurer's Office can seize that property and sell it, or force him to make payments, because you're obviously going to seize more than you're going to need. And so that is a recourse. But after the fact, that doesn't work. By the time I found out about this and went over to Rush Fire Brick, they were gone. They had nothing to seize. Now, if their personal property tax is still on the island, there may be a recourse. But I don't know what personal property they had, so I don't.
If we get a legal judgment, can we lien property for that judgment?
And normally they get a chance to pay off the past due, and my understanding is it's more of a difficult process to get it leaned. I'd have to look into that more.
Well, seeing we own the property, how could we have to lien the
personal property.
Leaning the property.
If there's and I'm not an attorney, don't know, all the legal ramifications, but I'm just wondering if we have a legal judgment, can we lien like a residential property that they own?
I think we started talking about if you could tie it into the personal, if they're behind on their taxes, there was a way to piggyback it, but we'd have to research it more.
It's just imperative that if you see one of these tenants, especially a tenant that has a lot of equipment, getting into a situation where we feel that he's going to move that equipment and make it next to impossible for us to collect, that for a notification, we can probably take some action that might give you some weight in going forward with your collection of what they owe you too.
I should note for that tenant, Rush Firebrick, they also rent a storage yard through us with another tenant. They split it, and it seems that some of the equipment from that building did go into the storage yard on our property as well, so we'd have to look into that.
Well, all we have to do is go to the assessor, and if the property that's over there is part of it, we certainly have access to it. But it has to be whatever is on their detailed list to the assessor. That's probably all going to go away after the first of the year anyway, so if everything gets through the House and the Senate legislature, they probably will do away with personal property tax in its entirety.
Mike, can you have a conversation with legal counsel and see if there's a way that we can get a little more aggressive with some of these tenants that don't end up paying their obligation to us, and I don't think we should just let them walk away and not have the responsibility to pay us what they owe us. So if there's a way that we can get more aggressive to try to collect that money, I'd like to look into that.
Agreed. Okay.
Any other comments or questions on the November 2012 financial report? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Manns,
Support.
support by Mr. Van Oz. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 6 is our manager's report. Under 6A is the Cully pass-through rent. Mike, nothing else to add?
No, nothing else to add to that. We'll continue the process and see where it takes us.
Then we'll move to item number 6B, which is Watson Engineering and DHS.
I've had several conversations in the last week. Unfortunately, Watson Engineering has purchased a building on the other side of the river near their current facilities on Racco. They're going to be moving out, they estimate, in February. So I will be on the hunt trying to find a new tenant for that facility. And then speaking with Manager Thiel over in Gibraltar, the Homeland Security building is slated to be completed on January 1st. So we will have to figure out, they still are unsure of when they'll be moving out, but my assumption is if the building's going to be completed in January, they would probably be moving out sometime around February as well. I have tried to contact some of their leasing offices and get an exact date, and I'm basically waiting for them to get back with me. And then I've also contacted someone on that note with the overpayment, trying to get a way to wire it back to them. So I do have one lead. I had a gentleman out a week ago who looked at Building 63 for rent, and he stated it was too small for him, and if I had any other opportunities open up, to call him. So I immediately, upon finding that out, I did give him a call, and he's going to be coming back in January at the beginning of the month to look at that facility. It's a classic car. He sells classic car and collectible cars on consignment. They need a lot of indoor storage, and they would also sell the vehicles out of there. So we'll have to see where that one goes. He's also a pilot and is looking for a place close to an airport. I should note that. So,
How many months did Watson end up occupying the building?
their 6-month original lease will be up in January. So they're at about 5 now.
Okay. Any comments or questions for Mike on Watson Engineering or DHS? Okay, now we'll move on to item number 7, which is our action items, and we have a resolution for us under action item number 7A, which is Building 6162 gutter heating element. We have a resolution before us that reads, "The Glozio Airport Commerce Park Commission hereby authorizes the Glozio Airport Commerce Park Manager to execute the agreement dated November 15, 2012, between B&P Electric LLC and the Glozio Airport for the installation of heat trace elements in the primary gutter of Building 6162 for a total cost of $2,660. I'll entertain a motion, and then we can have some discussion.
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Rathel. Support by Mr. Mans. Under discussion. Mike, you want to give us a little summary?
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, if you'll, or about, 6 months ago when Watson was moving into the building, if you'll remember the large repair we had to do to this gutter across the street was about $9,000. The roofing companies that I had out determined that it was most likely from the weight of the snow and the ice that has been in there during the winter months, and we don't have a heating element to combat those situations. It's because both of the roofs on the buildings both drain into the one main gutter, so there's quite a bit of weight that sits in there. The reason we did it through B&P Electric is they're basically our in-house township electrician. He did a significant amount of research on what the best system and the most efficient system would be for me, and because the amount of time he put in, the township manager was okay with making this a single source and he would sign off on it. We did determine that the cheapest route would be for me to purchase the supplies direct from the manufacturer. That came out to a total of $2,400. I should note that. And then the $2,660 is for the installation. So the total for that, total cost of the whole project would be $5,060. It's higher, but it is a commercial grade, and we have to do 2 runs, all the engineers determined. So it's a total length of 550 feet of cable needed. So that's why the equipment cost is so high.
Any questions for Mike?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Mike, this is obviously a repair item, non-budgeted, is that correct?
Yes.
And you take that out of your budget item for maintenance and repair,
Yes.
or additions and improvements, or whatever you call it?
It would be for maintenance and repair in the Commerce Park.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Rathel.
Mike, was this something that we agreed to as far as our relationship that we were developing with Watson at the time when they were coming in, or how did this happen?
This came up when we did the repair to the gutter. Upon talking to the owner of the roofing company, he said we would be in a similar situation several years out if we did not install a heating element. I also forgot to note in there that the repair that's done, we get a 2-year warranty on it if we install a heating element. He wasn't willing to give us a warranty if we were not going to.
Okay, so our responsibility with Watson has already been completed. We've installed the new gutters already.
Yes.
Now you want to put a heating element in the gutters.
Just the main one of the building to protect it from future damage so we don't have to repair it again like we did at the beginning of this year.
And what is the life expectancy of these heating elements?
I don't know that one. I did also consult with the township engineer on that, and he sent me a project he did with a similar sized gutter recently, and the specs he came back with were almost identical to the specs we came up with for this gutter in terms of the power and the size and the runs.
So we don't know how long it's going to last, and do we know how efficient or inefficient it is as far as consumption of electricity?
I tried to get a quote out of that. I want to say it was around $100 a month to run that. I'd have to double check those numbers. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
Go ahead.
My understanding is that without this, we're taking the risk that we're going to have the same problem over again with the roof. Correct?
Yes. When Watson entered that building, it seemed the weight of all that ice and the snow in there in the wintertime would it was basically popping the rivets up out of the roof, and it was slowly sagging down. When you would go in there, you could see sunlight through that gutter from the stress. And I wanted them to install the system also, so it would be we could turn it on manually whenever there's snow and ice in there. It wouldn't be an all-winter system. I'd have the maintenance staff turn it on as needed to keep the cost down. Because when you install a lot of the sensors that turn on automatically, they'll turn on under 32 degrees, even if there's no snow or ice. So manually doing that can save quite a bit of money on the electric consumption.
How long did it take for the gutters to separate without having this? How many years? I've never heard of this issue before.
I don't know when the last repair was, but I know the previous manager had it quoted before, and then just didn't do it because we didn't have a tenant at the time to support the repair.
Well, we're not going to have a tenant, right?
That's correct.
I think that on the surface, for me, is that we are going to lose a tenant there. These are brand-new gutters, correct?
We completely rebuilt that one. It has a new membrane in it and new coating.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they refastened it to the building. And
Yes.
So I'm not so sure this is an emergency repair. And for is it $5,000 or is it
$5,060. It's not necessarily an emergency repair. I'd consider it more preventative maintenance. I thought, I had the same debate on whether it was the appropriate time to do it with them moving out, but doing it while they're still in there will kind of help, while we're still generating revenue off, will help keep the costs down.
In your opinion, you think that this is a worthwhile preventative maintenance expenditure right now that was not budgeted? With looking at all the expenditures, possible investments for capital improvements that we're going to need here in the next 6 to 8 months, say?
I felt it was necessary. I mean, if we were going to do, if the building sat for another 5 years and we were going to have to put another $9,000 into that gutter when a new tenant moved in again, I felt it was an efficient purchase.
Mm-hmm. Well, it would be easy, for me anyway, if we had a tenant. I don't expect this next summer, after this winter, we come back and the gutters are separated and, we have a problem. If it's something that we need to do with the tenant, I think I would be in favor of it, but I think some of the arguments make sense, but we're losing this tenant, Fire Brick, Homeland Security. I want to talk about our vacant inventory of property. I'm not so sure if this is a wise expenditure of $5,000 at this point.
Mr. Chair, what was the cost of the gutter replacement or rebuild?
It was high $9,000 range. I want to say $9,800.
And you're going to spend $5,000 to protect a $9,000 repair?
Well, it's not only the gutter repair, though, it's the protection of the roof.
Yep.
Well, the inside structure too, because the roof starts to leak, you got it inside too.
Yep.
Definitely makes it easier decision when there is a tenant there and there is an incentive for doing it. However, just because the tenant isn't there doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be done. So the question is there something that is a more worthwhile expenditure at this point? And to me, this is going to have to be done. So whether we do it now or later, that's the decision. If we have a wiser way to spend this money right at this minute, then we could look at that. But I do think that at some point in the near future, this is going to have to get done.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Ray.
Mike, you said that they won't give a 2-year warranty unless we do this. Is there a warranty currently?
He didn't offer a warranty unless we were willing to install a heating element.
So there was no warranty of workmanship, craftsmanship, product?
I think there is something on the membrane itself, on the product. I'd have to look and see what that warranty is.
What contractor did the work, Mike?
Holbrook.
Albert. I get one last comment, Mr. Chair, if I may. Although we have no tenant, we still have a roof and we still have a structure that we're responsible for. I could see some real problems coming up in the future if we should have a bad winter. I'm not anticipating one, but if we should have one, I think it's a pretty wise expenditure. I would vote to approve it.
Well, according to the alpacas, we're not going to have a bad winter, so... Mike, explain to me where this is going. You're saying gutters, you're saying roof. Where are we at with
If you look at the third page on this item here, it'll show you the gutter that runs between the two buildings. The cable itself, there's going to be 2 runs of heating cable that run down this. They're going to go into the downspouts also on both sides and then all the way through the gutter. That gutter is 202 feet long, and then we're going to go down into the downspouts on both sides. It's also, I'd say, probably 14 inches wide. It's a very large gutter. At the time, that was just the way they joined those 2 buildings together. So you can see the 2 main roofs dumping into the one gutter, so the snow and ice will compact in there.
So that's sort of a collecting sort of valley in there that... Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Rathel, supported by Mr. Manns. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item under action items is item 7B, which is our marketing subcommittee membership structure amendment. We have a resolution before us that reads, the Groesville Airport Commerce Park Commission hereby amends the membership structure of the promotion and communications subcommittee as follows. The new structure would be 2 members from our commission, 1 township board member, 1 member representing the FBO, our airport manager, 1 member at large, and 1 member who would also be a tenant. That's a little bit different from the current structure, which has 3 members from our commission and does not have a representative from the township board.
Did you make the motion, Mr. Chair?
No, but if
I
you'd
will
like to
make
do
that
that.
motion.
Okay, motion by Mr. Van Oz. Supported by Mr. Manns. Under discussion, I would ask Mr. Rathel to comment, as I know he's been involved in the makeup of the committee.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners, this subcommittee was formed to basically be a clearinghouse of information, a collector of activity that happens here at the Airfield and Commerce Park, and communicate with tenants, the township residents on the activities that take place here at the airport throughout the year. Once we established that direction, we started working on a website, which we have a nice foundation for right now, and that is something that probably early next year we'll be able to show at this meeting. But it's taken on a little bit of a different direction as well, and that is that there's a lot of desire to market and come up with new activities here at the airfield. And this commission has had a lot of those, or this subcommittee has had a lot of conversations about that. Lauren Smith, who is now a trustee on the township board, has been on this subcommittee, and I personally have felt that she's brought a lot to the marketing side. She does have an interest in the airport and aviation, and I thought that it may be a good idea if we had a structure where Lauren could come back. And having a member of the township board also in the future will allow this marketing of our facility where our township hall is to be closer monitored and participated with a township board member. Lauren now could be somebody else later, and so on and so forth. We still would have 2 Commerce Park Commission members on that. We would have an FBO, the fixed base operator representative, the airport manager, a member at large, which would be a community member that had an interest in the airport and the activities, and then 1 tenant that pays rent here to us. So we only have, I guess our structure here, Mike, is just the makeup of the committee. We're not filling any positions at this point, correct?
That's correct.
Do you know if we have any applicants? Has there been any applicants for any of the positions?
I have not received any applications yet.
Have we advertised already for that?
For the marketing subcommittee, no, I've advertised for the commission.
Okay.
I will get those out.
Well, what I would like to do, if I can add a friendly amendment to this, since this motion is written for structure only, since it has to go to the township board for approval, that I would like to go with the recommendation that Lauren Smith is the township board representative on the marketing subcommittee.
I'll support that amendment.
Mr. Van Ness, since you were the maker of the motion, do you want to just include that in your motion then?
Right, include that if it's okay with Mr. Mans, who seconded.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there any other discussion about the makeup of the board? It looks like it's a good cross-representative to me as it relates to the groups that are active here, and then we also are going to have a member at large, maybe someone that has a special talent that they could bring to that subcommittee that could help in some type of marketing, wherever their expertise is in that field. So I would like or recommend that whenever these positions someone is found for that this board does take the action on that, fills those positions.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Rayfield.
Is that, Mike, what Chairman Moran just said, something that happens automatically, or do we need to make sure that it happens legislatively, that anybody that applies for a position comes here for approval before it goes to the board? I'm not sure how subcommittees work. I know for a commission that's the way it works, or that's the way I think Ted 4 years ago set it up with the process and procedures of doing that. But do we need to make that clear here that this is the way we're going to do it, or?
Just as comment, I'm not sure that there's without I have it down on my desk, but I'm not sure how the subcommittees are formed. I know in the DPS we just form them. We don't go to the board for any of the subcommittees.
But they're all from your commission, though, right?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, this is reaching outside of this commission.
I wouldn't. It's still a subcommittee, and if you want to form another committee and call it a committee, then obviously that would have to follow a structure through the board. But as a subcommittee that reports to a commission their recommendations, I would see no need for that to go forward to the board.
I would agree with Ms. Van Haas that I didn't think we needed to go through the board to set up a subcommittee. I think maybe for informational purposes, we could send it to the board stating that we want to have a member from the Board of Trustees on that committee.
Well, I think that member should bring this forward. Any actions that needed board review should be brought forward by whoever that board representative is. I think Lawrence Smith is a great choice. But I don't think the subcommittee structure or makeup, not structure so much. I think the structure probably should be reviewed by the board, but I don't think the makeup needs to be reviewed by the board.
That would just stay here.
And I would recommend, yes, that
All right, that's fine. Good.
our commission is the one that approved the people that sit on the committee.
That was my understanding of it as well.
I just want to clarify that so that it was, on record. And that's what I ultimately wanted anyway, was this commission to look at, and approve those people, not go around the commission to do that. Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Van Oz, supported by Mr. Mans, that we are amending the membership structure of the Promotion and Communications Subcommittee, and we're recommending the appointment of a township board member, more specifically Lawrence Smith, to sit on that subcommittee. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item is our subcommittee reports, and item 8, and that is this marketing subcommittee. Was there anything, Mike, that you wanted to mention other than what we just discussed?
Nope, that pretty much sums up our last meeting with the website and the restructure, so I would say we're set.
Mr. Chair, I do want to add one thing, give you an update on this website. Structurally, it is going to have the processes and procedures of organizing or securing an approval for an event to take place here at the airport. So that will be very clear and straightforward of, how to go about it. That application, everything will be filled out on the website. From there, it will go to a calendar. That calendar will look at any potential conflicts and then collect all that information for output as well to communicate the events that are taking place. So we wanted to make sure that anybody and everybody that has an activity that they want here at the airport go through this same process, and then that way, we have consistency and a record and fairness of the process of getting approval.
Do we need to review at all the application and the information that's requested on that? I know last year, or earlier this year, I should say, we had an issue before us that the Southern Great Lakes Symphony wanted to do a event here, and I'm not sure that all of the information about the event was known to us until sort of way down the road, and it became an issue that sort of at the last minute information was coming to us that concerned us, and ended up eventually we made a decision not to hold that event here. So I would just recommend that we review that application to make sure that any information that we need to make a decision is put on that application, so we have a complete picture of what's going to go on at the event.
Okay, I can bring that to one of our future meetings. I know we did bring that up in the marketing subcommittee meeting as well, that they want to review it. I sent it out in an email. I have gotten some comments back, so we can bring, suggested changes and see how you guys feel about it.
Okay, move on to next item is item number 9 is our discussion items, and the item 9A is the duathlon. Mike, you want to give us an update?
Sure. I know at our last meeting we were trying to find a solution to the duathlon for this year. Most of us, I came back with an email stating that it seemed like most of the other companies I've been contacting had already been booked out for this year. It was going to be hard to find a slot with a different company or even to get other options going. So at that point we recommended just trying to get a one-year agreement like we discussed with 3 disciplines. And then, when I was speaking with Mr. Cantz, it seemed like he wanted to maybe only consult and not assist with the event. So that brought some concern with me about the great amount of work that would be required for one person to do if we could not get anybody else to assist with running the event. So then I went back to 3 Disciplines and asked them to bring me forth a proposal on basically them running the event, me opening the doors and trying to supply them with a few necessities. But other than that, having them run all the other aspects of advertising, bringing in volunteers and things like that. And this is basically what they came back with. We would make 20% of all sponsorships that we retain there. And you can see the breakdown of the participants further down the page. $800 for 125 participants and $1,000 for 174. We normally get, I'd say, between 125 and 174. And the average sponsorships are about $1,000 a year. So I would say the total we would be looking at, if I had to estimate, would be about $1,200 or $1,300 off this agreement. It was also noted they're only willing to do a 2-year contract. They will not do a 1-year contract from my conversations with them so far. And the first year, it seems that he's taken over other events before, or 3 Disciplines has taken over other events before, and they don't like to just do it cold turkey per se. They like to kind of ease into it. So the first year I would still have to assist with going out and retaining my sponsors and trying to get some volunteers and things like that. Because they found if they just take over the whole event, it kind of has a negative attitude about it if you're in a smaller community.
Not that I have any issues with 3 Discipline, but if we were to change the company that runs the event, is there a downside to not having the event this year, so missing a year and then starting in 2014 with a new company? I mean, do we lose some momentum by not having it every year, where people get used to having it around the same time of year and having the event here?
I would say I considered the same thing as well. As I feel like we may lose some momentum if we take a year off. You know, if people get into the swing of doing the duathlon every single year, that could be an issue. We may lose some of our clientele. But on the same note, if we take a year off and come back with a different company, maybe do something a little more exciting, we may be able to attract more people in that way, or a new kind of clientele.
So the choice is we either sign up with 3 Discipline for 2 years and then maybe look at running the event with another management company 3 years out, or take a year off and use that time to look at others. And I mean, who knows, we may end up going back to 3 Disciplines. That may be the best deal we have after we look at what else is out there too. Mm-hmm. So we may end up right back where we started. Any thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, my feeling is that a 2-year agreement is something that I'm not personally going to be in favor of. The financial return for the commitment that they're asking for is not acceptable in my opinion as well. I don't buy their argument that they want to ease into taking over an event. We've had this event for a number of years. They're fully aware of what it takes, which is the reason why they're putting it on our shoulders. So basically what we do is we run the event, we get sponsors, we get volunteers, we provide the infrastructure, the race course, safety, police protection, fire, so on and so forth, and we make, on a high end, $1,200 to $1,400. What did we make this last year?
This last year we made a little less, about $700 or $800, but that was after everything because we had a little more expenditures this year. We had to order new shirts and glasses and things like that because our supplies were low.
Right. So, you know, it was my original thought that we would, you know, just have them come back, let's do this, keep an event going while we take the time to go after something different, something that actually attracts people. We're going down in our participants, but something that can build up in its activity, like some of these boot camps, Muddy Buddies, whatever, something that would be better suited for taking advantage of our historical site here, military, with boot camp and things like that. So I'm not in favor of this. I mean, it's not a motion, it's just discussion, but I would say that we just tell them thanks, but no thanks.
Mike, do you have an idea what the revenue is generated that 3 Disciplines gets out of this event?
I do not know that number.
Do they give that number to us and you just don't know it, or we just don't, we're not privy to that information?
We're not privy. The normal agreement is they'll give us a percentage, or they start paying us after a certain amount of participants. And we don't generally see their numbers, or I have not at least.
I'm just wondering if they're making, $5,000 and we're making $800, or are they only making, $1,000 and our take is $800.
I could pull together an estimate. I mean, if you're, with their ticket or their prices to enter, between $75 and $100, and if we're having 125 participants, I mean, I could extrapolate something out of that and try to take a guess and send it out, if you'd like that.
How many participants last year?
It was about 120, I want to say like 128, I think was the number.
And it was $90. What was it per?
It depends on when you enter. If you enter in early, it was around between 60 and 70, and registering the day of, it was about $100.
So let's say $80 average. That's $10,240 plus sponsorship that we got, right?
We would retain all of our sponsorships under the old agreement.
Under the old agreement?
Yeah.
Right. Whatever revenue.
Well, we don't know what their expenses are, though. I mean, that's what their revenue is, but we don't know what kind of expenses they have.
Their equipment, their trailer to drive down for the day, the crew. They normally have a crew of 4 or 5, so they do have some
But
expenses.
they don't hire anybody. We have all the volunteers, right?
They still bring down, I'd say, a group of about 4 or 5 of their own employees to help break down afterwards.
So their only revenue is through entry.
That's correct.
Well, they're over $10,000 of entry fees.
So even if they had half of that in
Yeah.
expenses, they're making, roughly $5,000. And I have no idea, if that's a good number to them or a bad number, but at least it gives you an idea of what they make on the event and what our share is. Any other comments or questions on the 3 Disciplines?
I just have one comment. You said that we keep the revenue from our sponsors, but according to this letter, we get 20% of that.
That was under all the old agreements we have with them. We would go out for our own sponsorship, and we would keep all of the sponsor funds. Under this new agreement, this is their new proposal of, they would essentially take over all the sponsorships, and we would get a 20% cut of everything that we get.
So our return could be much less than $800.
Yes, but then they up the participant revenue to us. It's almost a net from the old agreement to the current agreement. It was just them trying to phase out, or us trying to phase out the work, the large amount of work that would have to go into the event.
Seems like a lot of work for you.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Latham?
Mike, when you say that we got all of our sponsorship money, am I thinking of a different T-shirt? Didn't they have like a whole bunch of logos and everything on the back of this thing of sponsors?
That's correct.
And those are sponsors that we got?
Yes.
All those sponsors only added up to $800?
They average about $1,000 a year, and what we would also do with the sponsors is cash and then prizes. So the cash was always a little bit lower, but we'd have a lot of prizes that were equivalent that we would give away as awards.
And the food money came out of sponsors and everything?
Yep. Most of the expenses, the water, and it's a product similar to Gatorade.
Why
all
do we
would
do
be taken
that?
out.
If we get 100% of the sponsorship money, why were we giving it away in prizes to the participants?
No, the prizes came along with the cash. It was more of cash and a prize from the sponsors.
Could you do this kind of a breakdown of the money we get? I'd like to see a spreadsheet on that.
Okay, I can put something together for you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone in favor of continuing with 3 disciplines for the coming year, which would have to include not only 2013, but 2014?
I'm not.
Okay. Hearing no support for that, Mike, at least you have some direction that, I guess you can continue to look for other companies. It sounds like 2013 won't work. As Mr. Rathel suggested, maybe we change the event, and it's not a duathlon, it's some other athletic competition that maybe is something that could draw a different crowd, a bigger crowd, something different to the airport. So if you could maybe look into that and let us know what other types of activities are out there that are being run in other places, in the next meeting or two, that'd be great.
Okay.
Moving on to item number 10, the chairman's report. Unfortunately, I have to report that Commissioner Nardoni has submitted his resignation. He's taken a new position with the Wayne County Airport Authority, and because of that, it puts him in a situation where there could be a conflict of interest sitting on our commission and working for an airport authority. So after our last meeting, Mr. Nardoni did submit his resignation. He will be missed. I think he was one of our most qualified members that had a lot of experience in the things that we do here on our commission. So I think it's going to be big shoes to fill, but we wish him well and thank him for the time that he spent on our commission, and just wish it could have been longer, but understand that things change and circumstances didn't allow him to do that. So he will be missed.
I don't know if it's appropriate, but I deny his letter of resignation. And if he thinks it's more important to go get a job to support himself and his family than to volunteer to the airport, then...
I'll make sure that I pass those comments on to
Joe, I just got to say that Joe was an excellent member of this commission and could serve anywhere in this township. Personally, I liked him, but professionally, he was one of the best people I've sat on a commission with in over 20 years. So I will miss Joe, and I'm saddened that he's not with us anymore. So I just wanted to make those comments publicly.
And I think I will talk to him and ask him that if anytime in the future, if things change or the requirements at the Wayne County Airport Authority loosen up and it allows him to come back onto a commission, that we would welcome him back anytime.
Before Ted takes him to the DPS commission, we want to make sure we do that.
With that, I'll move on to item number 11, which is public comment. There is no one in the public today, so I will ask if any other member has any open business. Mr. Van Oz?
Just a couple of comments. I'd ask that Mike and I are going to check on the taxation procedures that are being used at Metro Airport, because that's the only facility around here that has a large number of 189 properties. We've just gone through a 14-point review here in the township, and part of that was they required us to assess taxation on our tenants for real property, even though they don't own the property. they have taxable value in Wayne County, said we need to move forward with that. State of Michigan said that. This creates kind of a dilemma. The dilemma being that, according to the rent structure, the lease structure that we currently have, it's part of the tenant's responsibility to pay any and all taxes. So if they get this bill and they don't pay it, they become delinquent. They're now violating their lease, which would cause the treasurer's office to go over there and evict them while we're trying to fill buildings. Our own township is trying to kick them out, and I don't know that that's a smart way to go. I don't know that that's going to accomplish anything. And it's such a small return on a tax revenue for the township. So I've asked the assessor's office to see if there's some way that we can structure our lease around this, so that right now it's kind of a gray area. And I would like this to be I would like Mike and I to go to Wayne County and find out how they handle the 189 properties over there, because they have a huge amount of tenants over there. And I'm sure they're not charging them all tax. So what's ever good for the county is going to be good for us, and I think we'll review that. Secondly, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And also to state that I'm very proud to be back on this commission, as I would be on any commission. The commissions in this township are the lifeblood of the government. Without them, we don't function. I am one vote on this commission. I'm not the vote on this commission. I will take all of your projects, your processes, your questions, your recommendations forward to the township board as you recommend to me, or as you recommend as a commission. And I want to thank everybody on this commission for serving on a commission, because without the commission structure here, things go south real quick. So I'm pleased to be back. Thank you, Ron. It's a pleasure to serve again. Kind of started out here, thanks to Mr. Rayfeld, who dragged me from one commission to another for about 5 or 6 years. But it's worked out very well, and I'm glad to be back. And hopefully we'll get the things done we have to do.
Again, we're happy to have you back, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to you too. And I'd like to echo what Mr. Van Oz said. I have in the past, at the end of the year, thanked our commission members, and I'd like to do that again this year for serving on the commission this year again. The remaining people on this board have served for a long time, and it's what's made this commission get things done around here is the attitude of the people that sit on this commission to volunteer their time and just do whatever it takes to get things done. So I do appreciate that, and as chairman, I appreciate the help. And Mike, I know you haven't been here long, but we appreciate what you've done for us since you've been here, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. I appreciate your guidance as well. It's helped me out a lot so far. I'm learning quickly.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:57.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Van Oz. Support by Mr. Mans to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries.